Hey everyone. Can you guys hear me okay? Audio good? All right. We'll let everyone kind of feed in for just a second now that we are officially live, and then we will get started. This is going to be a fun one. Vinny promised to drop some F-bombs. Just kidding. No pressure.
I mean, it's going to naturally accidentally happen.
Yeah, it's just part of my language now. But for those of you joining, feel free to use the chat, and we will make sure to address any questions that come up. We'll feed those over to the screen. At the end of the day, we want this to be valuable for you guys. Really excited about our guest today. I think you've got such great insights, not only in what you're doing at scaleMatters, but just from kind of your presence in the RevOps operations world. So again, guys, tap into our experts. Let's make sure we're using this time to be valuable for you. And I'd say let's kick off. Vinny, I'm super excited to have you here today. For the audience, can you give kind of quick intro on who you are, what you do, and how you got into RevOps?
Certainly. So Molly, a pleasure to kind of connect with you today. Been kind of following you via LinkedIn for a while, and it's just great for us to finally catch up and actually connect. So I'm part of an organization called scaleMatters. We founded it about 4 years ago. We have a business intelligence application that helps organizations figure out where they're currently spending and what things are sort of working for their investments.
Amazing.
How did I get
yeah, like I want to know how did you fall into this trap? No, just kidding.
Complete fucking accident. I mean, I was at a job. The person that was running Salesforce quit. They said, "Who wants to learn Salesforce?" I raised my hand. That was about 15 years ago, and I made a lot of Salesforce mistakes. I created all sorts of daisy chained workflows. And I mean, here we are today, right? I mean, it's just leaps and bounds in the amount of craziness that Salesforce has kind of changed in my overall career. So,
yeah, I always laugh. I'm like, I'm that Salesforce old that like I still use Classic. Like I always joke with my team, is like if you take me out of Classic, like you might not have a job anymore, right? So please don't take that ability away from me, because there are still things that like I cannot figure out how to do in Lightning.
I mean, try to merge two accounts in Lightning, right? That you just can't do it if it doesn't match your sort of duplicate role. You go to Classic, right? I mean, it's just stupid little things like that. I get it.
If anyone from Salesforce's product org is listening out there, just like give me less clicks to get to an object, right? Like that's the part that I think like kills me. It's like when I need to get to an object and make a change to a field, it's like 2 extra clicks. Like no one has time for that. But I digress. I'm really excited to have you here today. I love like I'm going to ask the fun question is like, when do you feel like you actually like realized you were in RevOps, right? Because I think like we've all had that pivotal point, like before RevOps was RevOps, where like we were doing RevOps but had no idea that that's what we were doing. I would love to know like what your point was on that.
For sure. So I mean, in previous jobs, right, I was always sort of like a one-man island, sort of handling everything, right? Touch Salesforce, it was Vinny's problem. We want to automate something. It was Vinny's problem. We need a report. It was Vinny's problem. Why is data fucked up? It's Vinny's problem. So it was sort of one of those things where I kind of naturally fell into it. And, RevOps is sort of like today's version of just anything that sort of ties to operations that span across multiple sort of departments or infrastructures within an organization. But I mean, this has traditionally been your marketing ops team, your sales ops team, your finance ops team, your customer success ops team. And just to kind of depend on how large your organization is, right? You may have a little bit of like luxury having more than just one head. But a lot of it is like people just assume, oh, you're a Salesforce admin. You're also the analyst. You're also the tool organizer. You're the enablement person. Where in reality, right, this sort of RevOps group is a group of people, that specialize in these sort of things. It's just you're kind of getting these cross-departmental sort of things working together and all part of the same goal and the same structure. And, it's not sales versus marketing. I mean, how many places have you been where marketing is like, oh, we generated all these leads and sales ain't calling them. And sales is like, all the leads you give me suck. That's why we're not calling them. Where it's,
It's like, I
generate.
mean, it's, yeah, the age old thing. Like, I mean, I remember being at Marketo almost 10 years ago, and like that was the hot topic, and like it's still the topic, right?
No, for
Like,
sure. For sure. I mean, it's still that classic sort of battle. And I mean, it's just, I do like the term of RevOps because it is starting to say, okay, it's everybody that's revenue generating for this organization. We have one
yep,
common goal to get to. It shouldn't be like a they said versus they did kind of thing. But
yep.
it's kind of hard to break that chain, right? I mean, that's been so long with these different sort of silos where it's kind of like getting people now to sort of, join together as one force. I mean, you kind of move a mountain with more people than just one person. So,
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the, I'd love to get your take on this. And like, again, I'm like, I joke because like everyone's like listening to this, but I look at this as with Rosalind, we talked ops therapy, right? Like all these conversations, I'm like, oh, good. I get to pick the brain of somebody based on like all my thoughts, whether that's in a public forum or not, whatever. Leaning into that is like, one of the things that I spend a lot of time thinking about is like accountability, right? And ownership.
sure.
And like, when we think about like the customer journey, like in that process, like like ultimately, like who owns that? Like, does RevOps own that? Like, who owns process, right?
Yeah.
Like, and that's one of the, I think the big points of like contention or friction or like accountability comes into place, and or lack thereof, because that's what drives the systems, that's what drives the process or the
Sure.
data, that's what drives the policy. Like, what's your perspective on that?
Yeah. So, I mean, you're exactly right. Because part of like your RevOps team is sort of your tool tech person, right? Sort of
Yeah,
the person that sort of sets up your system and make it sort of go. But who tells that person to sort of, this is my design process of doing it? And part of the thing is you're not going to always get that right first out of the gate, right? You need to be able to quickly iterate off of those sort of changes. And
yep,
part of it is sort of saying a couple of different things. Is it easy on my end user, right? Because how many times you got into a Salesforce environment and you want to move something to close one or close loss, and now you get hit with 50 fucking validation rules, and all the stuff I just filled in won't save because I forgot one field that's hidden or somewhere different or weird, or I
it's on the
missed.
account page layout.
Yeah, dude. I mean, talk about pissing off your colleagues, right? And I mean, you push out these simple sort of process changes because we want better data to produce better reports, but we're so
Yep,
human element related, and a little bit of it, right? Again, is sort of, well, what is it ultimately you want to be able to measure or sort of see? And you got to kind of work your way back into that into your process because again, asking a sales user to sort of fill in 50 things along the way so that way I can have my monthly you know KPI report to kind of show me these are my top 5 competitors, which is going to be all straight bullshit regardless because it's going to be a pick list and it's going to be your top 2 or 3 pick list values. um, it's kind of working your way backward, right? What are we trying to get to? And then what sort of tools or sort of elements can we sort of put in here to enrich this stuff? So it's not all human
yep,
driven. If you're able to make assumptionary things, it's going to be easier, and I mean, part of it is again going back and reiterating, right? Working with your peers that are on the sales side or the support side or the people actually using your tool and saying, how does this feel? How do
yeah.
you know what to do next kind of thing?
Absolutely. And I always I always joke about this, and we put this in a lot of like our Notion just documents internally at Deal, is kind of like our catchphrase is like, it shouldn't be hard to do business, right?
Right.
Like, so at the end of the
Oh
day, when we think about the customer experience, like it shouldn't be hard to do business with us, right? And so then as I think about, RevOps, right? Like I look at this as like, we ultimately, are employees of the revenue organization.
sure.
It shouldn't
1000%.
be hard for them to do business with us, right? And like
Right.
we then, as they're the consumers of this, product that we're building and this infrastructure, like shouldn't be hard for them to do business with us. And
Yeah.
so
It should
like
be natural.
for,
Very natural.
yeah, it should be natural. It shouldn't, we shouldn't create friction in what gets us to revenue. Like we just shouldn't. I shouldn't be having them do 27 different things in a way that's not conducive to like their natural selling motion that aligns with like what the expectations are of the customer. And so I think that's where a lot of companies like, and I'm guilty of it. I'm sure you're guilty of it, is like, just because I can build this cool thing and like, this is this, should I kind of
Yeah.
thing. Right. And like, so it's, how does this fit with like the customer process? Right. And always kind of working back from those expectations.
Yeah. Cause I mean, the other thing is not only just our internal people, right? But like now you start thinking about your website. Is it easy for somebody to request a demo from you? Is it easy once they do hit that form? Is the right people being alerted, or do you give them sort of a calendar automatically book, right? Is all that stuff kind of
Yep.
talking, because that's part of one of the
Yep.
biggest things is, I mean, everybody's like, oh yeah, I'm just going to buy this next tool. It's going to solve all my problems. Well, that's BS, right? I mean, you got to go in there, you actually got to configure the tool. You got to make sure the data's
Right.
pushing back and forth. And then you got to make
You've
sure
got to have the process, right? Like,
and then your users are actually seeing what it is that the awesome shit you just did, Because I've built a lot of cool things, I think, over my career. And I'd say that there's a lot of them that just have
I
never
built a
been
lot of
used.
cool things that never got used.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly. Like, oh man, that was a great idea. I'm going to build the shit out of this auto renewal thing. And then we can't close any deals, so my renewal never fires.
right. I mean, like, and then some of that's like the nature of like who I think we are as just general, probably I'm going to call them practitioners, but like, I think I always joke like I joke a lot with my husband on this, is like, he's like, you're the one who runs to the fire versus like running out of the fire. Like, you're like, oh, let me fix this. Like,
Yeah.
this looks
Yeah.
great, right? Like, I think we're natural chaos coordinators and problem solvers. And I think that's just how like an ops mind works.
Totally get it. I mean, it's almost like, there's a problem, we'll fix it. We're like the janitor almost, right? Something's broken, figure out how to fix it and put it back to normal. And I mean, that's
yes.
just also makes us the biggest fish in that pond as well, because we're sort of we're the glue that's holding almost everything together.
Yeah, absolutely. I always I love that you just called us janitors.
Hey, it's
I use cleanup crew, right? Like, we're, so I just had to just laugh and might have internally slacked somebody when you said that. He gets it. No. And it, the way that I've naturally like spun this, right, is like, we are the optimistic pessimist. It's that our glasses never half full, because there's always room to improve it, right? And that's where like that optimism comes in, and that efficiency. So it's like, it's that. And I think,
process,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
I mean, it's because out of the get-go, I doubt that we're always getting it completely right.
And if you are getting it right, you probably left something on the table, right? So like, if you do something perfect, you probably did it wrong.
That's a great quote. I mean,
I was like, my poor kids.
I mean,
Mom, I got 100%. Why didn't you get 110?
Hey, big shoes to fill, I guess, in this scenario.
But it's true, right? And I think about this a lot. I've been recently spending the last several months building out more of like a pipeline operations function on our RevOps team. So as you think about revenue operations, and I'd love to get your take on this. You have like your traditional sales ops, your CS, your marketing kind of operations. But one of the things that we were looking at is like how pipeline happens, right? So like where the top of funnel pieces really come into play, and building more operational practice around that. Specifically, I think a lot about, I'm going to say the poor SDRs, right? The sales development reps that like really they're not sales ops. They're not marketing ops, right? Like, where do they fit in? And, I've always been really passionate. Like, this is the face of your outbound company, right? Like, if you think about your consumers, like, these are the people who generally are representing your brand for first touch interactions. So how do we do right by them from an operational practice, and like looking at sequence performance, call cadence, data quality, enrichment, all of those things. And I'm always like, when we run hypotheses and like run tests of sequences, like if we think it's good, I'm like, yeah, it's probably not really that good, right? So like, how do we champion challenger that too? So yeah, would love to get kind of like perspective there.
For sure. And I mean, hats off to anybody that's in an SDR sort of role, because they tend to be one of the most junior people within an organization, but they have
Yeah.
one of the biggest amounts of responsibility, which, like you said, they're almost the face or the first touch from your organization. And,
And they
you
get
know,
the least amount of support, right? Like,
for sure. I mean, I've kind of always have felt very much inclined to make sure that their lives are easy, because, you got various sales loft, outreach, group, HubSpot. They all got this sort of sequencing thing. And some of them easier than others. Some of them you can put some automation rules in this so things automatically
yeah,
happen. And you got to keep it simple. I mean, these poor people are saying, hey, I got to make 100 calls a day. I need to book 5 meetings a week. I need to make sure that not only did I book them, but they're actually showing up. Well, what are we doing on our side to kind of help support them to make that easy? They got to
yeah.
download something from Zoom Info. Okay, cool.
And
How
then
did
we're
that
like, don't spray and pray, right? Like, be personalized, be
Yeah,
targeted, like do better. Your messaging's vanilla. Not that like,
yeah,
but like again, it's like we're putting these like unrealistic expectations
that's very
out
true.
out,
Right?
out there.
And part of it is, you start off with sort of a business plan, right? And honestly, that all ends up with, how much do we plan to sort of book, right? And then you take a step back, right? We do so many ops that actually go from opportunity to deal. Okay, we got an X number of opportunities created. Cool. How many meetings do we need to book to actually get to an opportunity? Cool. How many leads do we need to get? How many of these types of leads do we need to get?
Yep.
And it all kind of starts there. And like you said, it's sort of
And
unrealistic
when do you need to
expectations.
get those types of leads, right? Like, because then you got to
Right,
factor in your velocity components all into
for
this, right? Like,
sure. Because not all leads are the same. You have people that are active hand raisers that come to your website and they say, yes, I want to talk to you about your solution, versus I just downloaded every freaking body that fits in my TAM that is, a CEO or CFO or VP sort of level, that I don't know about you, but I constantly get phone calls from random ass numbers that are part of my area code that I never
yep,
answer. Right. So, like, phone calling, I feel like, is sort of, I don't want to say dying, because you won't catch me on like a Friday afternoon at about 2 p.m. when I'm ready to like bullshit with somebody and maybe break some balls. That's what I will answer, like an SDR call. But like normal during the week, man, you're never ever going to get me to kind of answer. And then your email, I will read almost every email that comes into my inbox.
yeah.
I won't reply really ever unless you sort of got me pretty quick. But you got to get me like clear and concise. I don't have time
And
to
it
read
has to be
paragraphs.
yeah, it has to be impactful too. Like I think, the thing that I talk about a lot is like as consumers, like we expect now with this world, right? Like the world that of data that exists, this intent data, this, everything that's out there. Like I expect these things about me.
True. Very true. As creepy as that sounds, I
Yeah.
do expect you to have a little bit of my knowledge of like what my first name is. The best is when you get like high first name. That always cracks me
Yeah.
up. Or like, hey, I tried to call you yesterday. Yesterday was Christmas. Look at your sequences and just like fix that.
Correct. And I think it's like even just like outside of like the SDR piece, as we think about like CS, as we think about support, as we think about sales, right? Like if I just put a support ticket in because your tool wasn't working,
Yeah.
don't email me and tell me about this great new feature that you want to upsell me on. Like, no, email me and make sure like the support ticket's taken care of, kind of thing, right? Like that's the meaningful touch, right? And like spend a lot of time thinking about like what are next best actions as it relates to sentiment. And like we should be looking at this based on like customer experience, but also prospect experience
Yeah. I mean,
too.
you just brought up an excellent point here, right? I mean, majority of organizations that get recurring revenue, their customers are basically the people that want to kind of continuously land and expand, right?
Yeah,
Bomb the
yeah.
rubble and keep pushing them up. But like you just said, I just told you, like, I can't log into your tool. It's not doing my expected outcome. And then I get a renewal notice, or I get, have you checked out this new feature, which is now a new $1,000 a month sort of thing. Um, it's kind of making sort of all these sort of groups that are using your centralized CRM, whether it's Salesforce or HubSpot or Pipedrive or whatever one
Yeah.
that your organization's using. But you got to kind of have those views so that way people are making these educated sort of decisions, because you're going to piss people off,
Yeah, and again, it's like you have the data. Like you
Yeah,
can't tell me as a company you don't have this information. Now, it's your responsibility if you have it centralized, unified, and like actually consumable, right?
usable. Yeah,
Yeah. And I always joke, it's like, okay, Salesforce, and like we'll talk Salesforce as CRM, but obviously there's other platforms out there. It's like it can either be in a spreadsheet where all you're using it for is for like data input,
true.
or it can actually be intelligent where you're showing like how to actually drive changes on information and how to use information to like prescribe behavior from your sellers. And I still think we're struggling how we cross that bridge from just like input for reporting and output based on action.
Yeah. And I don't think that anybody out there has had this silver bullet. There are sort of these features that pop up and sort of these like call transcription
Data
things.
science, machine learning, like we can solve it
Cool.
all, but like,
Well, that YouTube video looks super fucking sexy, but it doesn't say I got to put 5,000 manual hours in there to sort of build this thing up based off of this keyword triggering something.
yeah.
You know,
And I always joke like, oh, great, you can put it in my data warehouse, my data warehouse, and then put it in my BI tool. But again, it's not actionable. Like I need actionable information.
yeah, yeah. I mean, it's just, I think that us as people on the RevOps side, should continuously push our limits. There's awesome organizations out there that are sort of these Slack
Yep.
workspaces that are out there that, you know, there are horrible places of the internet where people are complete assholes to one another. The sort of Salesforce ops community is not. I mean,
No.
I was talking with my Salesforce developer yesterday, and we're looking at stuff on like unofficial Salesforce, and he's like, "Why do they put free apps out there to do this?" I'm like, "Because like we're common, it's a common fight, man. We're all trying to get to like make our organizations better. Like sharing this sort of knowledge and making it repeatable is like a great feeling, and it's the only place on the internet people are still kind to one another, which is crazy."
Oh, I mean, like we just like like we all have this a similar struggle, right? And like a lot of times, and I had Daniel from Ops in a Box out here who's like, I mean, I struggled with this at every company I was at, so I built a product, and now like I want to help everyone just be able to use this thing that I was spending tons of time on. I'm like, God bless you. Like that's what people like we need
Yeah,
out there, because you're augmenting limitations, and like if you can figure out a good way to do it, like share it.
share it for sure. I mean, that's kind of this, easiest way to do it. I mean, I just kind of think back on like going through my career, right? I went through like a jumpstart 5-day class. Like I actually went into a classroom, they taught me Salesforce, and I walked out of it and I was like, I still kind of don't know what the fuck I'm doing. Right. And part of it
Yep.
was going out, Googling things, watching YouTube videos. I mean, Trailhead has
Yeah, like we
significant,
were pre-Trailhead, I think
yeah,
probably too.
for sure.
I
Like
mean,
that was not even
my
a thing.
first CRM was Dynamics, if that makes anyone feel cool.
Yeah, exactly. Working at a proprietary built CRMs, like God, man, like it's just come light years ahead. And it's just there's so much information that's out there to sort of like self-guide yourself or find, a community of people that every one of them are willing to help. Like
Yeah,
I've never met somebody that's not ready to sort of get on a screen share and sort of like help troubleshoot things with you.
I know. I think like, so I don't know what the like. I'd love to know. I don't know where like RevOps became a thing, right? Like in my mind, it was probably 6 years ago. Is probably right when that that turning point was. But, coming from more of like the marketing ops piece, like, and working for Marketo, right? There was community, right? AKA like actually Marketo's like community. But like now we actually have like true operations communities out there, and like community is a thing. And I'm like, how has this not been a thing for like the last 20 years? Like, this is phenomenal.
Yeah.
Just in terms of like connecting people in your network and like learning and resources. Like, a lot of us are like RevOps teams of one or teams of two. Like, a lot of companies, like, this is just where they're starting to get the investment. So just that career support, I think is really impactful. And a question that comes up a lot, and I'd love to get your perspective on this, is like, say you want to move into RevOps, right? Like, let's take two different pieces of this. Like, you're trying to make like a midterm career change, right?
Yeah.
Into RevOps, and versus like early career adjustment into RevOps. Like, what have you seen like people be really successful with? Like, what advice do you have?
Yeah, for sure. So like, trying to make a change mid-career, right, is always a ginormous, like, scary thing to do, right? You're kind of definitely moving out of your comfort zone.
Yeah.
You may already
Yep.
have a very comfortable job. You're maybe bored in it. You want to be challenged. You want to go somewhere else. Part of that is sort of leaning on your community that you already have, because I'm going to guarantee
Yep.
you have sort of people that can kind of help you point in those sort of directions. But obviously, like, Salesforce Trailhead is probably one of the best places to sort of get started, because not only are you sort of being taught things where you're being quizzed along with having doing practicals, it's a good place to sort of like say, can I sort of do this type of work? Because I'd say that a lot of the stuff within Salesforce itself is if-then statements. If this happens, do
Yep.
that. Otherwise, do this, right?
Yep.
All of that sort of is there. If you're able to do basic logic, you can get pretty far on being like a tech administrator, in my opinion.
Yep.
Becoming a developer, significantly harder, right? You need to sort of understand, JSON or JavaScript or fucking,
Yep.
being able to write statements,
Yep.
and just sort of understanding logic and governance and all that, yada, yada, yada. So mid-career, I think it's just, you got to kind of dive headfirst into it. Starting your career is sort of looking for like mentorships and sort of looking for people
Yep.
that are in the community to sort of help you out. I mean, shit, that goes both ways. Actually, there's probably no difference, honestly, between
Yeah.
new and changing mid-career wise, because honestly, if you sort of find somebody that you can kind of bounce ideas off of, or sort of like talk to you about like potentially where can I go to learn a little bit more, it's gonna help. I know a lot of people say like go help a nonprofit for free, which, and again, another place that you may have a little bit of an area to sort of go in and learn how Salesforce works. Obviously, the nonprofit startup is a bit different than just typical
Yeah.
Sales Cloud or Service Cloud, but you can start to get some ideas there. I mean, a lot of it is using real life examples, right? How the hell do I do this in the real world, right? Hypotheticals can go everywhere, but at least there you got like a little bit of a real life scenario,
Yeah, and just getting that the experience, right? It's like they don't teach RevOps in college. RevOps isn't a major. Like, it's not because you're a business major, because you're a whatever kind of
Yeah.
thing there. And one of the things that like I think about a lot, and when people ask me for this type of advice, is like, okay, like, you're currently an AE, and like you're an AE, and you're like, man, I think operations would be super cool. And I'm like, well, just make sure you're not doing it for the money, because that's not going to happen for you. But
not a millionaire from us. From working long hours, working long nights, people on
yeah, right. Yeah. And I think I laugh because I'm like, I think about like, the probing question is like, why is this appealing to you, right? And like looking at like, how do you understand this? Because it's not, I think we think about a lot like the systems components of RevOps, because that's such a huge piece, but like there's also like the operational components and like the stakeholder management and like those things. And, for businesses, right? Like, if I have an AE who's been with the company and is like a top performer and is like highly collaborative and like is that person who can help like really build out process and like give good feedback, understands like the scope of a tool, is I'm going to say like is consultative versus like aggressive's not the right word, but right, like isn't complaining, right? Like, and that kind of thing. Like, that's the person like I want on my team
Yeah.
to like learn RevOps, because they, the hardest part about, in my mind, of like being in RevOps is learning the business, right? Like, and like really understanding the business and balancing that fine line between like knowing too much and not knowing enough. Because it is like you are almost like this third party consulting firm. And so there's value in still like not knowing things. So you're smart enough to ask what you don't know and not assume, but like knowing enough that you don't like assume too much, right? Like it's that fine balance.
Yeah.
I don't know. I haven't figured that one out, but like understanding the business is like such a huge learning curve when you come into a new company from like a RevOps perspective that I think is harder to get over earlier in your career.
Oh my gosh, yeah. And I mean, the other thing is too, is like one org to another org, and just think of just your simple CRM of Salesforce is wildly different, right? Because
Yep.
I've been to places where you got 500 custom fields on almost every object and various workflows, process builders, flows that are all running and doing shit. And it takes you probably a year just to figure out how the thing even fucking works, you know?
It takes you breaking it 20 times to figure it out.
I mean, I was joking around this with my colleague Justin the other day. I'm like, we got some junior members on our team, and it's like, they haven't had the luxury of breaking a Salesforce yet, right? And almost making it unusable. And you're like, oh, fuck, what did I just do? Oh, I just changed this formula that just set everything to $0, not what it should calculate to. It's, it's those sort of things that you kind of need a little bit in the career to sort of A, never do it again, and B,
Yeah.
from those mistakes, right? Because there's no guidebook that says company A to B to C is all going to use the same
Right.
exact thing, And
unless you get to stand up everything from scratch, which like by the time they're hiring RevOps, you're not standing anything up from scratch because they've now realized they need the help and they can't do it on their own. So you're inheriting something.
Yeah, I
Like,
mean, their neighbor's
good luck.
cousin, their neighbor's cousin's brother's next door neighbor's kid plays video games, so they're the Salesforce admin for the next year until they're ready, right? And then, somebody had posted something the other day where like they looked at this org and there was like 30 checkboxes, which all meant almost the same exact thing, and instead of having sort of a pick list or multi-pick list or something like that, or sort of a custom object to account for those sort of record values. It's just you're inheriting every other admin of what they did previously to you, and I can guarantee you none of it's fucking documented. One of my biggest pet peeves that I go into somewhere and there's no descriptions ever written about anything. One of the things that I yell at my whole team about all the time is like, look, we're all joined here together, and like if one person jumps in, how do they know what the next person just did? Use these descriptions. Be kind to your other fellow people.
Descriptions, help text, like the more you can document in platform, the better, because Google Docs, Notion, like all that stuff like lives there. I always joke. So I think like the evolution is that you go from like founder-led sales to founder-led RevOps. Like, so as soon as like they get out of the you know what I mean? Like,
I know exactly what you're talking about. We're living it.
It's like,
we're living it here.
Yeah. I mean, I laugh because it's the natural evolution though, right? If I was if I was the CEO of a company, like my first hire would not be RevOps. Like that might sound crappy to say, but that's not where I'm going to put my money. Like I still believe like you've got to support, like operations needs to support growth. And so you have to have growth first, because otherwise how do you know what to scale, right? Like you've got to figure out something there before you start really making that investment.
And I mean, you're almost investment almost in front of RevOps may even want to be an analyst, right? So you can sort of say, where do we actually need to improve these sort of processes? Where do we need to improve areas that we want to collect more data, right? Because if you sort of have an analyst mindset behind that, you then start to know, what do I need to collect? What do I need to sort of have to report off of? Or where can we make assumptions off of stuff?
Right.
It's just, every business runs different. I mean, there obviously is a very core centralized thing that every organization is going to do, right? You're always going to have an opportunity. You're always going to have a deal. Everything
Yep.
else is sort of comes in
There's
between.
some transactional component that happens, whether that's monetary or not.
True.
Like there's some transaction.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's just, again, it's just one of those sort of things that you need to be sort of easily able to kind of, I don't want to say change things on the fly, right? But you do need to sort of let
Yep.
sort of control and tests sort of kind of happen. Whether you are making sort of page layout changes, work with your peers that are using those page layouts, right? Did I completely
Yep.
change their whole world? I mean, how can I easily log a call? Does that actually feed back into the CRM if they're going to be judged on number of phone calls? Is it feeding itself back in properly? If they tell you that the person told me to fuck off on the other end, how do I stall out that record or move them to sort of like a dead status so I don't call them again? You know?
What's that experience? Yeah, right? Like, and it's like, what are their expectations that they expect? They don't expect getting an email tomorrow asking
Yeah,
like for time to chat,
yeah. Hey,
right?
please call me back. Hey, I got your voicemail
Right.
yesterday. Can you please call me and then introduce me into your AE that is now going to try to sell me your tool? Please do
Like,
that.
let's not yeah, I was like, let's not send our NPS survey with to people who have, P1 tickets open. Might not be the best time to ask if they're willing to refer, right? Like again, it's just like making sure but I've seen it, right? Like these are all things that like I've seen and it's like you've got to get that right. Like again, it's aligning with the experience. Like what is our process and like what are the expectations we're trying to set in this to match what our customers or our prospects or our consumers ultimately want to have happen,
Yeah.
and like really being able to meet them where they're at, again, and I just try to put myself in like their shoes, right? Like I don't want to talk to a salesperson to pay $5 for something. Like I want to PLG go in, enter my credit card. Like don't make again back to like don't make it hard to do business
Yeah.
with
Oh, for sure.
yourself.
For sure. Because I mean, sometimes, if I can't self purchase or there's not like a chat option, I may never even sort of submit the form because all I know that that means is that somebody's going to start emailing me nonstop and call me nonstop. Right. And the worst where this has, I think, been like this sort of like new sales mentality, like they sort of double tap you. You call, I send you to voicemail, and you literally call right back again, or you call right back again.
Yeah.
That's just frustrating. Like, just put you as the receiver of that, right? I get you're trying to get a call connect. I get
Yep.
you're working towards a metric, but also like, I don't know, the golden rule, man. Treat others the way you want to be treated. Like, do you literally
Right.
want to get some random
And
number
there's
call?
this like fine line, between like your personal space at this point too, right? Because like I'm not
Yeah,
carrying two phones around. I've got one phone that's like my phone, and
yeah,
if you call, I still remember, and I'm again sorry for this person who called me at like 7 o'clock at night my time, and I'm like, you don't even if you don't know what time zone I'm in, like, I
sure.
picked up the phone. I'm like, because if you're calling me that late at night, like I'm assuming you're not, you
Or it's an
know,
emergency,
I
right?
tell,
Or somebody that should
yeah,
be calling me. Yeah,
yeah, and I'm like, no, I'm like family time, right? And again, like it's like meeting customers like where they're at and like aligning to their experience, which I keep saying, but I think we forget that a lot, right? And like we've got to make sure like our processes meet expectations and our data supports our processes so that it's really easy
yeah,
when I'm building those lists for call connects or when I'm trying to like reach out, like I'm able to say, okay, they're in this time zone. Like this is what's happening there. Like, even to the point when I worked doing ops like in agriculture, it was like, I know it's raining where they're at. Like they're
right.
probably not in the field farming, right? Like that's a good time to like at least,
Maybe call.
let's kind of
Yeah,
thing, right? Like, doing back office stuff, but like let's be smarter about like how we build those experiences and how we delight. And I think we're still not great at that yet. And
no,
I, I think we all can do better and be better.
and again, I sort of think, right, kind of going back to sort of that SDR that comes in, they're
Yeah.
brought in, they are given a little bit of training. They may not have any knowledge whatsoever in technology or whatever they're potentially selling. Yet they're
Right.
supposed to really be an expert. There's potentially ones that are building their own scripts or emails, and then they're building out their own cadences. They sort of need guidance, and that guidance comes across from, if you have the luxury of having sort of a sales enablement person that can sort of train
Yep.
them up in a sense, or a SDR manager or a marketing team to kind of provide them those things, right? It's just, some of these sort of shotgun blast things are just like, hey, we're going to fucking try everything that this tool can do. I mean, like right before this call, I got a text message for somebody trying to say, we're going to book you 50 meetings a week kind of thing. I was like, don't text me that shit. Like, I don't know, man. I just don't know if I appreciate being cold prospected, texted. But maybe that's just
Right.
because I'm a crotchety old man. I don't know. But I just feel like that kind of crosses a little bit of like a personal boundary as like a consumer.
And I think we just, and like back to the point, like we think about the experience. So again, I'm like, these are the things that keep me up at night as a RevOps person. It's not like, maybe it should be the bigger things, but I'm like, I'm very passionate about SDR operations, right? Like I'm like, this is a thing. Like you set them up, you get them in your outreach, you're telling them these aggressive goals. Guess what? They're using your company domain. They are now spraying and praying, trashing your company domain because you don't have the right strategy. You're not doing right by the consumers. You're not, valuing that experience, and you're going to spam. Well, now your support team is trying to get it, your product team or somebody who's using that same domain. Best case example, you now made an offer to somebody and you're sending them an offer letter from HR. And they're not getting it. It's going to spam because you're not doing the right things in the right way from like an ops perspective, or like every email you're sending is getting unsubscribed, right? Like now you cannot email that person, and you've now just like broke that relationship and made it 10 times harder to get to that TAM person that you want to talk to.
Yeah. I mean,
and like you really have a good business case too, because you send them an email and we're like, hey, what's up? Want to buy my product? Cool. Book time here.
I mean, it's just simple blocking and tackling, right? I just feel like a lot of people have almost overly complicated, very simple shit. And, we all want to sort of have like the next great idea. But I mean, just go back to sort of tried and true sort of things that potentially do work.
It's like keep it simple. Meet up, like know
yes.
who they are and what they're looking for. Like if you send me a personalized email, like, and like I can tell you aren't just ass kissing, right? And you like genuinely can prove like why your solution like could help me and my business, like I am far more likely to respond to you than getting like something that is mass emailed. If you send me an email and you say this is not a mass email, like
I know it's a mass
I'm also
email.
going to call you bullshit on that. Yeah, like
if I receive an HTML email from you, right? Like you fucking
did you code that?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I honestly think if you're able to sort of do personalized outreach, take the 5-10 minutes beforehand to actually look at my LinkedIn profile, what's on Zoom info, all those sort of things, right? Because we are so gathered across the internet at this point, you can just learn just about anything we really need to, right?
Yep.
And make those sort of things relevant. I'm going to be way more responsive to you versus just, hey, buy my shit.
Yeah.
So
and like you already have heard, I clearly have a soft spot for SDRs. Like I have the soft spot here. Like I am, and I'm again, like the part that like makes my blood boil is like if you post on social media and like you see people do this all the time and it just ticks me off where they like blast somebody for like their prospecting. Like don't blame the SDR at that point. Like you need to blame the operations, the marketing, the sales leaders, right? Like that's a clear like not getting direction, not setting your team up for success, like not using the right data and having like the right procedures because they did poor prospecting efforts. Like it's not the SDR fault, it's the company's fault.
Or the system, right? I mean, how many times I've been a long-standing Salesforce customer just here at scaleMatters for probably 4 years.
Yep.
Like I got an SDR from them call me asking for one of my other colleagues. So obviously somewhere my phone number is associated with that person. And they're like, let me talk to you about Salesforce. I'm like, dude, have you looked at my fucking profile? like I'm Salesforce admin all over
Right.
the place, and we're already a customer. You know, like how did you guys get this wrong? You know, and I mean it's big
Yeah.
companies like that that sort of these processes are still not ironed out. You know, nobody has the silver bullet here, and I mean that's why the
No,
community is here to help each other. You know,
and that's where it's like you've got to get those simple stuff right, right?
yeah,
So like before you work on things like next best action and like make it really complicated, like get the basics right. Like
basics, basics,
set
blocking and
set the
tackling.
basics, be confident in that, and like keep it simple, and like then build on top of that. And I think we're always like, I mean, I'm guilty. I'm like, oh yeah, we could build this great rocket ship and go to the moon, but like we don't even have like wheels on we don't even have wheels on our bicycle yet. So like let's like really get the foundation in place, right? And I think that's what's so important. Like, and a lot of times, like when I think about prioritization and how I communicate back to the business, I think about it like in the pyramid, right? Like, yeah, we all want to get to the top of the pyramid, but like we gotta still like make sure we can do the simple things right and have that in place. Then we need to streamline, our business as usual. Then we need to like work on how do we, start to optimize. And then we really need to work on like how do we really rev this thing up.
And that's exactly right, right? I mean, it's almost like a black box, and you sort of got these little toggles that you're constantly toggling on and off. And
Yeah.
the biggest thing is exactly what you just said. Keep it simple. Get your baseline rolling, right? Do I sort of have these
Yep.
basic things I'm able to collect back, right? And that can be across the whole customer journey, right? Start there. Get us from when they
Yep.
came in the door to when they became a customer, when they renewed, when do they have support issues? Can I measure all that sort of shit? Awesome,
Yep.
you've passed level one. Now let's go to level two. Now take your toggle and flip it up another quarter of an inch. Right now, we're going to
Yep.
reiterate a little bit further on this. Cool. Now I want to look at how many meetings we're actually setting versus ones that are being held that turn into opportunities. Right, go another layer deeper.
Yep.
You know, if you don't have that core basic foundation, you're fucked.
Yeah, it's like you can't like, there's the whole thing like how you can't improve what you don't measure, right? But you
True.
can't measure what you don't have defined. So like you've got to get
Or
right? I mean, it's true.
Or the other thing, right? Kind of going back to this sort of siloed departments, you know, one division is comped off of number of leads generated. Another is comped off of number of deals closed. Another is comped off of logo retention, right? And they're all chasing a totally different goal, which,
Mhm.
is almost counterproductive to the other team, and it's just like, well, fuck you. I generated 10,000 leads this past year. Not my fault. You guys only closed 10% of those. I hit my goal and I crushed it. I was
Right, you've
always
got to
generate 8,000.
incentivize the right behavior, right? Like and like really, and that goes back to like alignment. And I think we still struggle with the alignment and the accountability and like the responsibility. And like I think that is still an issue. I think RevOps is honestly like in one of the best positions in an organization to drive this, but also in the worst position because of how we get
Well,
like what this how we get put in kind of in the org.
well, it's you're kind of going in between these cross department things, and you're like the mediator of them, right? It's like, hey, mom said this, but dad said that. But now
Yep.
I'm in the middle
And you have
trying to.
no authority or authority, right? And it's like you're having to do so much influence
Yeah, and
without accountability and
you know,
responsibility and like
the,
yeah.
the whole part of RevOps, in this scenario is sort of marrying all these sort of departments together, right? You're sort of mediating, you're sort of trying to drive the actual ship. And obviously RevOps is sort of this core function of it, but I've constantly been in
Yep.
my entire career, RevOps will figure it out. Sure, we can try to fix it, but we need your guys' input too to be able to kind of do it, right? It's always just like, kind of going back to tech
Well, and it's
janitor.
like if you fix it, then you own it, right? And like that's the part to me that's like super super important is like if we come up with if with the solution and like build the solution, like then we own it. And like these are things that we shouldn't own, right?
Yeah.
Like and like
Yeah.
and
I,
that's a huge thing of like where roles and responsibilities and alignment happen and like
I mean, there was a
that.
point I was at in a company where like I owned Salesforce, HubSpot, Gainsight, Zendesk, Zora, all like completely unique to very individualized like departments there. But I was like the owner of it, and I was like, I'm one person, guys. Like, could I get some fucking support here to help? But you know what that did is it taught me a ton of stuff. It taught me a lot of
Yeah.
things, how finance operates, how customer success operates, how support operates, right? Where I came from a marketing world, right? I came from digital marketing. Like I was managing
Yep.
websites, shit, right? This kind of threw me into the lion's den. So I'm grateful to the extent that I got to do that because I started to learn a bit more. And the other thing was
Yep.
I became like a super important person at that organization, right? Like big fish,
Yeah.
small pond mentality. And I feel like a lot of the RevOps role is easily able to kind of jump into that because it's almost like you're crippled if somewhat one of those key people do leave because they sort of understand the architecture of how all these things kind of function together. And it may be you're
Yeah.
having to do a nightly load to fucking sync data up between them or something, right? But you kind of understand the connectivity across the entire org. And, I think the
Uh,
future of this sort of RevOps thing hopefully is going to just, it's the revenue team, which is also called go to market team, right? Like it's just the name
yeah.
kind of is starting to change already.
Commercial, go to market,
Uh, this change is probably going to change 2 more times in the next 3-4 years. I don't
and
know.
I think, yeah, especially like as we see, more PLG come in and like products ops folding under. I mean, like as we think about, more changes in like how people sell and what we're doing, I think there's like going to be this continual evolution, which is great. And I think definitely keeps us on our toes a bit, but it's, how do we how do we define it the right way for the business, and how do we make sure like we build this in a way that I spend a lot of time thinking about like doesn't hinder your own career progression, right? Like I never want people on my team to like not be able to grow, right? Because they're so good at what they do, or because they're the janitor and somebody has to take out the trash, right? So it's like how do you get them into like the supervisor and like I don't know what
Yeah. Or
the right
next,
career path is there, but
right?
yeah,
I
but
mean,
getting things in a way that we can get them out of like the business as usual and get them out of the firefighting. And time and space has been a big concept that I spend a lot of time thinking about, is like do we get enough time and space to like separate from the day to day to like really take a fresh perspective.
yeah. I mean, it's like the reactive versus proactive sort of approach here too.
Hmm.
It's just like
Yeah.
everybody like RevOps will fix it or RevOps will solve it. And it's like, cool. When do you ever want me to improve things if I can never sort of step out of the here and now? Right. I need time to
Yep.
step. I was listening to what Daniel had said from RevOps in a
Yeah.
Box. There needs to be time to sort of let this creativity that we sort of have to sort of allow that to
Right.
kind of build out, right? To sort of solve this top level problem, not just this bullshit in the weeds sort of thing that like, you know, there are complaints and there's feedback, right? And I think that they both kind of go hand in hand because this process we may have just rolled out now takes, like you said earlier, I got to take 7 clicks now to edit a field or whatever. They no
Yeah.
longer have that luxury, right? So it may sound like a complaint to you, like, oh, they're pissed off that they got to do this. But at the end of the day, right, they are your front line. They are the one who's sort of getting you to your deal getting booked. If they're not doing that,
Yeah.
we're not gaining revenue. We're not gaining revenue. I can't pay my bills, right? Like,
Right.
you got to kind of cut through the noise a little bit.
Yeah, and it's always like the one who screams the loudest is probably the one who has the least to say. And so like how you I'm like full of them today. Welcome to
Just come with a
Molly's
book. I buy it.
philosophy
Yeah, I buy that book.
philosophy chart. Um, and it's Yeah, then it's, like, so it's like, how do you gather that feedback the right way too? And some of those things is like, sit with the right people, right? And I try to make an effort of like, and it's a lot harder in the COVID environment, not even the COVID, but the work from home, right? I used to be able to just like wheel my chair up to somebody's desk and be like, let me just shadow what you do, kind
Yeah.
of thing. And I think that that's still like just still important to do, is like watch how somebody works, and don't my best piece of advice, don't watch how your top performer works only, and don't watch how your lowest performer works, right? Like get a really good blend of that. And then the other thing is like solicit feedback, like quick survey, quick, like those types of things, as well. And like top level steering, you've got to have, right? Like you've got to have your executive steering, but like you also need to have more of like your middle management steering and prioritization there. Cause again, back to like those are who are supporting like your front line. So like, well, the CRO and like the head of sales like are like, this is so important, right?
Yeah.
And it probably is. Like, what are like the mid-level people talking about that like really could just like, if I could do X, Y, and Z, I could improve productivity by 20%. Right?
And
Like, well, what does 20% correlate to for dollars? Because like that's probably what the top person's going to care about a lot more than really what they're asking for.
yeah. And I mean, obviously, if you roll out these sort of things and like that direct manager is not behind it, or they don't know what the actual driver is of it, and they're not sort of
Yep.
pushing, providing this sort of feedback, the people below them are just not going to give a shit either, right?
Yep.
It's that happens so often. Where like somebody at the management team's like, we have to do this new process. Don't give a fuck how we do it. Make it happen. And then the person
Yep.
that's two managers below doesn't get the importance of it. They don't push their people to do it. There's no follow through of process, right? It all fails up all the way up, and it's just you're kind
And
of
there's
stuck.
no enablement and like that kind of stuff. And like, God bless the enablement people, because like I personally know where my strengths and where my weaknesses are, and that is my weakness.
Oh, come on. You don't want to get on there and train 50 brand new users that have never used your application before?
No, like, and I no, and that's where like I'm grateful. Like we've got such a good enablement team here, and like I just am blessed by them, because that is, I was never meant to be a teacher. I was never meant to be an instructor. I was never meant to like put digestible content that people could like very quickly understand. Yes. We'll just
I,
leave it at that. So
you should see some of my documentation. You're like, Vinny, what am I supposed to do with 8 pages? And I'm like, what do you mean? Look through it, read through it. Come on, it's a lot of pictures.
and like part of the reason is like because we live and breathe it, right? So like I'm like, oh God, you don't know what a lead and a contact are? Like, what's wrong with you? And that's just empathy, right? And I think we can all get better there. I know we've got 2 minutes left. Anything from your end that you want to make sure we touch on? Otherwise, like I have kind of like a final question I want to ask you. And I
Yeah.
love that this was just so much dialogue. This was like definition of ops therapy, and probably what I needed as we kick off the month of February.
Yeah, I mean, I would say in this case, right, if you want to sort of get into the ops world, find the community that works for you. There's plenty of them out there. There's plenty of people
Yep.
that want to help. If I can be of any assistance in anybody's career, reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm always happy to connect. Happy to sort of just shoot the shit
Likewise.
or just troubleshoot with you, right? I'm happy to get in the weeds, or I'm happy to talk strategy. Either way that I can help, please leverage or use me.
Awesome. So, okay, this came up with in my meeting with Roslyn, and now I'm going to use this to ask everybody who comes on kind of the WTF of RevOps. Like, if RevOps had a tagline, what would it be? Like, what's your tagline for RevOps?
Need another drink. I mean, no, in reality, it's just, realistically, like, I don't know, man. I just kind of going back to it. I just feel like RevOps just gets thrown into so much stuff. Like RevOps will figure it out. And it's just like,
where's my broom? Hold my broom.
Exactly. I'll fix it. Yeah. I'll fix it. Hold my beer. I will go fix that for you.
Yeah. I mean, like, I think mine is always going to be, it depends, right? Because I think that's just like anytime somebody is like, oh yeah, what's RevOps? Can we do this? Where should it report? Like any question you're ever going to ask, like it depends.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, and you know,
There's been plenty of things that I know is well outside of what my normal day to day is, but I'm going to end up doing it because I always see the better good of the organization,
yep.
and I'm going to want to sort of challenge myself to sort of figure out, is this something that I now am intrigued that I have to fix this thing? I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
So anyway, well, Maya, it's been
Natural
awesome.
problem solvers. Yeah, this has been great. Thanks everyone for joining. And again, you know, I know Vinny, when you say you're connect and you're going to be reciprocal to that, I know you're not pulling one over on people. Again, goes back to community, and like this is a great one. So really, really appreciate you spending time with me today.
Excellent. Thanks for having me.
Take care, everyone.